Hey everybody, Scott Costa, publisher, TED Magazine. Thanks for joining us. Another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. And I've got a good friend of mine on again, Mark McGreedy with Idea. Really appreciate it. And we are going to talk about eBiz. You can see over his shoulder right now. eBiz is coming up September 29.
In sunny Denver.
In sunny Denver. Apparently Denver is sunny these days. It will be September, October 1st.
It should be
Um,
a little bit longer.
Right, right. And I tell you what, I'm going to start with this, make sure we're clear so we're talking about eBiz. This podcast is for you strategy people. And it's for the IT people because that's a part of eBiz too. But don't go away because we're going to talk about how eBiz is really targeted toward you strategy folks and that you need to be a part of the attendance, a part of the attendees at eBiz. So, Mark, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
joining us real quick. Talk to me a little bit, just kind of lay a little foundation that IDEA has sort of laid out an agenda here that is, yeah, we need to be data strategists.
Yeah.
Take me into
So,
that.
so technology has a way of changing the table stakes a lot in these industries. It comes over time, and then you suddenly have to be an expert in this space. If you think about the dot-com era, whenever websites came in, suddenly every company needed to be a web company. They needed to have an e-commerce system. They needed to have a website. They needed to have the staff that would support that. And it was never something that was required before, but it was like a table stakes thing. Even if they didn't sell a lot on it, they understood that the website was how their customers were going to interact with their business a lot of the time. And so they needed to put that in place. Data is something what we've primarily used to just get by. It's been seen very functional. We know what this item is. We know, what its amperage is. We know what its rating is, and then everyone can figure it out from there. You can look it up and that sort of stuff. But this whole AI revolution and just the expectations that companies are going to have, when we talk about AI automation, we think about it internally first. How can we make our life a little bit easier? But we've got to consider that every company in the world is asking the same question. And if there's one thing AI is excellent at, it's data retrieval. I was talking to someone the other day and he said the internet was like a library. For the longest time, you go to Google and that was the door of the library. And you go inside. But if you were looking for something, you needed to navigate the library. You needed to figure out what section you were going to go to. You needed to look at all the different references, and you needed to go hunt to try and find everything. AI is a librarian who will go to the exact place you want, who will pick out the book you need, and who will read it to you instead. So it changes the nature of how we interact with information because AI is doing the hunting now. AI is doing the working rather than us doing it ourselves. And that's a large part of the productivity improvement that all AI companies talk about. So when you're reliant in that environment, just having good data is the difference between a system that works and a system that ignores you and go to someone else instead. And one of the things I always tease the industry about is the industry is a bunch of companies that sell the same products to the same customers at the same prices with the same guys. There's a lot of overlap and similarity in our competing marketplaces, and everyone thinks that they're different, and that's wonderful. But sometimes a gray box is a gray box, and a reel of cable is a reel of cable. So it's process that really defines the difference between the success and unsuccessful. And if process is becoming data discipline and data excellence, then it's time to get really good at that sort of stuff. And this, I think, is the next table stakes. So while there's a lot of conferences about AI and new software and all of that sort of stuff, I think everyone who knows anything knows that everything depends upon having an excellent data lake and an excellent data source. A lot of companies have spent a lot of money trying to put that in place.
Mhm.
But the challenge most distributors face is that their data is not theirs. Their data is all of their suppliers and all of their vendors and everybody else's that they have to try and format and they have to try and standardize and clean. And that has been IDEA's goal for 30 years now at this point.
Yep.
And it's still not done because you're talking millions of SKUs, you're talking thousands of vendors, and you're talking about a very dynamic range of products that are always changing, and you're talking about very specific technical things. So it's elusive that it's just never ending, but it is one of those things that just requires constant maintenance and support. And so the purpose of eBiz is to talk about this in an environment where you're meeting with people who have this exact same problem. Every company faces this same issue. An idea is owned by the industry. It's owned by NEMA and it's owned by NAAD deliberately
Right.
to not put you in the environment where you're talking to someone who's trying to sell you stuff all the time. It is not a commercial enterprise so much as it is just a utility. An eBiz is one of those conferences where you can sit in the room and you can say, we're struggling with this, we're struggling with package quantities, or we're trying to automate a warehouse right now, and we're trying to figure out how we can get dimensional information. Or our website is a struggle because we don't have standard naming conventions for different engineering settings or any of that sort of stuff. Everybody's trying to solve this problem at the same time. And idea is there to try and help solve it for everyone because that's the most efficient way to do things. But there's a lot to be said for getting people in the room that are facing the same challenges as you. And then when it comes, you mentioned data strategists at the start. I mean, the backbone behind any sort of AI change is going to be your data strategy and how you're going to utilize that and how you're going to use that to differentiate you and that sort of stuff. And to be honest, that is not an IT role. That is a commercial role. That is a business strategist role, essentially. And that's the kind of folks we needed eBiz too. I think eBiz had been looked at as that's where all the nerds go, and they talk about nerdy stuff, and they talk about EDI transaction sets and API connections, and that's
Yeah.
true. We love our nerds, but there is a place to talk about what does our business need to do to be truly ready for what's coming? What is a business going to look like in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time? What are the table stakes that if we don't get right now, we're going to be really in it in a couple of years and it's going to be too late to catch up. That's the kind of thing that we really want to try and make eBiz about.
And I think to expand on that, there's a connection between the strategist and the nerds, the IT guys, because
Absolutely.
you can't you can't do it in a bubble. You can't send one person to eBiz and have him come back and translate everything for everybody. And that's where I think the concern to me comes into play, where it's like, data management and data strategy and data execution is a big groups thing, not a one
Yeah.
person thing.
That's
And that's where you can get so much out of eBiz while you're talking to other people and you're talking internally to your people about, yeah, you know what? Let's think about all these great things that we can do with this data that we already have.
it's such a consequential thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's probably the most consequential thing that every company is going to face because they have warehousing figured out, they have billing figured out, they have
Mhm.
sales figured out, they have pricing figured out in the most part. So most companies run with 90% is fine,
Yeah.
and the 10% is where we need to work. That's where you focus your energy and effort because all of this was done in the past. It's such a consequential topic and such a consequential effort in a business that if you have a superstar who knows everything and controls everything and can go back and everyone will sit at the table and obey everything they say, then maybe it's a one person thing. But in the most part, all of these things are groups and committees because it's too much to put on one person. And so you need to have multiple players. You need to have multiple players attending different sessions. You need to have multiple players networking with other companies and really figuring out, you know, how others have solved the problems because there's no easier way to solve a problem than find someone who's already solved it and ask them for help.
Yep.
And there's no harder than trying to figure it out yourself. You'll make every mistake trying to figure it out yourself. And somebody else has already made them if they've already walked that path.
And here's my other thing. And again, I'll use TED Magazine as the example because I don't want to, make it look like, somebody's doing it wrong and as opposed to me who may be doing it wrong. I have a ton of data. Like I couldn't, if you were going to say, hey, Scott, measure the amount of data that you have just in TED Magazine alone, I'm like, I just can't.
Yes.
I can't. I think I'm using it as well as I possibly can, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that. And that's why some of these sessions at eBiz, and again, having a team together, more than one person, I want to get your thoughts on this, leads to, yeah, I mean, I think I'm at 100%, but I only think I'm at 100%. Like there's
Yeah.
something else about knowing I'm at 100%. And that's where, again, I think some of these sessions come into play. So in your conversations with, again, with companies and people that you deal with on a regular basis at IDEA, I'm sure you're running across the same thing where it's like, yeah, you're doing great. I'm not trying to say that you're not, but you can be doing better.
Well, I mean, even if it's simple stuff. So I've been selling data whispers, and we have data whispers companies that have come and we're doing trials. And when
Right.
you get into a system like that that's doing analytics in your business, you're in the messiest part of their data. You're getting right to the crux of it.
Mhm.
And that's generally where all the sins get exposed. Just generally, we start having the real conversation with our customer segmentation isn't as good as we say it is, or our product categorization doesn't really make as much sense as it should. And so it comes through commercially. It's like we're trying to build a model of what a good customer should look like. And you've got a mix of a whole bunch of different customers. You call them all industrial, and then it doesn't work. Bad data. Or you're trying to recommend product categories and you're looking at the product consumption of a customer and you're like, okay, well, they buy this and this, but you don't categorize the products in the right way. So you don't know what's really missing because you don't have that. So one of the things about data is it's not just about having data, it's about having the correct data
Right.
for the task that you're trying to do. I think if people see a field and it's populated, they think it's done. No,
Yeah.
the field is populated correctly for how you intend to use that information. Only then is it done. And the thing about all of this sort of stuff, I mean, I've been talking data 20 years. Everyone has a huge amount of data. Everyone has far too much data that they could be reviewing and looking at. And to be honest, it's overwhelming and it's tiring to hear about this more. And we don't expect people to look at data. But we do think these next level intelligence systems are going to be eating and drinking of that. You don't want to have to look at all your data to figure out what the patterns and insights are about TED Magazine. You want a system that will do that and tell you what it means.
Mhm.
But for it to be able to tell you what it means, it needs to have everything categorized the right way so it's going to give you value back again.
Right.
Otherwise, everybody says garbage in, garbage out, and it's a underappreciated phrase in a lot of ways. It really means start part has to be right for everything else to be right.
Mhm.
And that's what this is all about at eBiz, is that more and more systems and processes and customer interactions and sales are going to depend upon downstream information. And so the source needs to be as pristine as possible because if it's corrupted, everything will always be corrupted until you get that fixed. So that's why it's still so essential and still a topic after all this time.
And that's a part of the projects and programs that IDEA does and some of the sessions again at eBiz that's coming up the end of September, beginning of October in terms of okay, have all this data, even if it's pristine, it's still become, and even if I'm putting it through the best of systems that I have, there's
Mhm.
still an execution side to it also. I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
so get me into a little bit of how you've shaped some of what the conference is, some of what the strategy is and the thinking and idea to say, yeah, it's simple enough to say, hey, here's some great data, and it's now we're going to make it pristine. But there's way more to it than that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, data is a tool.
Mhm.
It's a tool to make your business be better. That's really what everything is behind there. So what does be better mean? It means sell more or cost less because everything is ultimately about
Yeah.
one of those two aspects.
Right.
So sell more. Sell more what? Sell more to who? So where's the opportunity? How do I direct that? How do I guide that? If you try and do that without information, it's all guesswork. And you're just relying upon impressions and ideas. If you try and rely it upon the workers actually executing it, they get caught up in the minutiae of day by day by day. They're this close to what's going on that they can't see the forest behind them.
Yeah.
So data is wisdom, it is guidance, it is credibility, it is authenticity of what's coming through your information. So when you say we want to sell more stuff, good data tells you here's the best places where you can sell it. Here's about the best opportunities are. So could I walk into any company and say, which product line is your best opportunity to grow? And would they have data to answer that question? Or would they be just guessing based on what they think in the marketplace? And then if I said, okay, who's the best opportunity to grow that with? And how much can you grow? And what's the best approach for that?
Right.
You're getting into the execution phases of things. So good data organization gives you all those answers right away. I've talked a lot about a world in the future where we don't have software anymore. And it feels like a crazy vision. Software is an interface. That's all it is. We're using a software interface right now to talk through the computer, and then we have our keyboards and we type in everything. We have all these programs, and that's how it's been done for the last 40 years. But AI agents, maybe not, in 5 years, but in 10 years' time, will be the interface. You don't need to have all of this software, all this interfaces whenever you have agents that can do all of this. And you will say, I need to get one of these and two of these and three of these and four of these. You're not going to buy it on Amazon anymore. You're going to tell your agent's going to tell me, okay, I can source these on Amazon here, and you'll say, go place the order for me. Done. I need to fly to Kansas City on the 25th of January next year. Okay, here's your options. Okay, book that one. That's it. So it's funny because I wrote an article recently said where I think technology is going full circle, where we would talk to a person to do all of these things. Then software comes along and we start doing it ourselves. And we have all of these ways of doing it. Blah, blah, blah. We all become experts in how to book hotels and travel and all of that sort of stuff and figure out our vacations.
Right.
Now we're going all the way back again to having a person that we'll talk to do all of this. It's an
Yeah.
artificial person, but it's still a person. It's back to what worked the best. And it'll be faster and it'll be easier and all of that sort of stuff. So if we start thinking about what that world looks like and how the building blocks and the skeleton of all of this infrastructure is going to be put into play, the software needs the right data. It needs to know the right hotels, the right flights. It doesn't want you booking in the wrong place or sending you to the wrong thing.
Right. Right.
Every industry, every sector, every country on the planet is going to face this same reckoning, I guess.
Mm.
Get it right, because this is the world that's coming. But the productivity gains and the capability acceleration. I read something really interesting. It was actually my chat that told me this. Me and my chat are good buddies at this point. We talk all the time. I give him a name and everything. We were talking about productivity and the AI.com bubble, because that's what we were talking about. It was a long car drive.
Uh-huh.
And when software first came along, it was a productivity explosion over the course of the 90s, because
Mhm.
you weren't dealing with filing cabinets and you weren't dealing with manual entry and manual keyboards and all of that. So one person could do the job of three people. And it was just a huge productive boom that gave us the 90s when everything was awesome. But software had kind of plateaued a little around the time when Office was out and Office was really good. And you could do Excel spreadsheet and you could write letters and documents, you could send emails. That was pretty good. That was almost everything we needed. So then we got business systems, we got
Mm.
CRMs, and we got documentation tools, and we
Yeah.
got all this stuff. And it wasn't necessarily more productive, it was just a way of organizing everything. So I don't know many people who would say that they doubled their business because of a CRM. They made it double the business because of a
Right.
new e-commerce platform or a better warehouse or something like that.
Mhm.
But the CRM didn't get them there. The CRM just helped organize their people a little, but it was a
Exactly.
documentation thing.
Exactly.
So productivity, if you look at it in research, it's been flat for about the last 20 years. It's just been at this plateau with
Mhm.
all of these software companies and all of these systems, and everyone, is invested in these things, and they're like, I don't know if that was really worth the money, and probably you didn't get the productivity that everyone promised. AI is a game changer because I said it's fundamentally changing the nature of software. So we're going to move into another productive
Mhm.
era. We're going to move into a rapid productive acceleration.
Mhm.
And all of these things add up to those differentiators between the companies. Because I did say we're all selling the same products to the same customers at the same prices. So when you have someone who's productive and streamlined and efficient and effective and can talk to my buying agent and is allowed to source everything and I'm able to track what I need and the price is similar, I know where I'm going compared to the guy that's not there yet. And I think that reshuffle is going to be as disruptive as the reshuffle was 30 years ago.
Yeah. I tell you what I think about a lot, um, in terms of, again, eBiz and data and everything else, is that world of, I think I know it all. I keep going to AI events, to learn
Mhm.
more. And it's like, boy, I know nothing about it. Every time I go to an AI session, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea you can do those things. And that's where, again, I think eBiz comes into play and talking to other people. It's like you might have a ton of like kind of what you were saying. I have all these systems in place and I have data and I have AI, whatever. I got it. I don't need to come to eBiz. And then you go to eBiz and you're like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot more to that. And that's, my lay of the land here that I'm seeing, I want to know what you're seeing too, is yeah, you probably have a great system in place, but that's no reason to not come to eBiz because I guarantee you're going to learn something there.
Because AI is still growing. AI is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
So way back when I was younger, you would get a computer and would have this processor and have this hard drive. And I remember when I was in college, my buddy helped me buy a computer and it had a 1 GB hard drive. And he told me that that is so big, it will do me for the rest of my life. I will never need another computer.
Yeah.
1 GB is massive. You'll never fill it. Um, and it's one of those phrases that you remember because it's like such an absurd thing to think, but
Yeah.
that's where we were back then. And I remember computers would evolve every 3 or 4 months. There would be a new faster processor, a new faster modem, or
Yeah.
graphics card coming in, and there was just this dynamic environment until it plateaued around 2010 or something. Then it feels as if it settled down.
Yeah.
AI is still in its cradle. It is still nowhere near it's the worst version of what's ever going to be. So I experienced a perfect example of this yesterday. I was looking at old presentations I put together for Nudge the Robot. When we were rolling it out last year, I always had this vision for Data Whispers of a little robot that would whisper in your ear. And I'd used AI last year to try and create an image of a little robot on the guy's shoulder. And I was looking at what it had given me a year ago, and they were awful. They were it was mutant stuff half the time. It just didn't work that well.
Yeah.
And you were desperate to have something that would look almost credible that you could show. It was very, very difficult. I spent this weekend creating a 2-minute animated video of a sales rep with Nudge the Robot sitting on his shoulder,
Mhm.
calling on different customers and talking about business. And it is Pixar level quality. If Disney wants to call me, I'm ready to come work for them at any time. And I made this entire animated movie, 2 minutes, 50 different scenes in it. And that is a 1 year difference from barely being able to generate a
Yeah.
picture to
Mhm.
being able to make a movie.
Yeah.
And you sit back sometimes and you're like, what's it going to do in 3 years' time or 5 years' time? So a lot of people would like to be comfortable to think, we can invest now. We know what we're doing. We've got this thing, like move on to the next thing. That's not the case for this. This is a dynamic period of time right now. It's going to be constant change. You need to put yourself in that mindset and be comfortable with that mindset. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you stop and the other guy is not stopping, you're going to be behind. So it's constant looking what's out there, looking what's next. The thing I love about these AI conferences is that nobody knows anything. It's so beautiful. Nobody really, nobody can see the future. Nobody really knew what the future of the internet was going to be. Um, we were talking about sharing music together or listening to the radio and that sort of stuff. We never
Yeah.
saw streaming TV. We never saw, Facebook and all of that sort of stuff. So with AI, we have no idea what it's going to be like in 5 years' time. We have people who can come up with all sorts of different ideas, but we just don't know where these capabilities are going to take us. The one thing it kind of really hammered home to me was for the past 2 years, I think AI had talked a lot about replacing employees, freeing up headcount. AI will do this, so they can do something else.